How's it going, everybody?
Hey, it's Dallas Cowboy Day.
It is Dallas Cowboys Day. It is the start of the football season, and the Cowboys are the opening team. So
we get to open and close because we are going to be in the Super Bowl this year.
All right, this sounds fun. Since you're playing the Super Bowl champions, you want to go $10 on the game?
Yeah, I'm in. All right, I'll do $10.
All right. So the world knows, and so the world knows, next Thursday, I am actually going to be flying to Dallas to do a legal update class. So next week will be kind of a cool week where Kent and I will be doing this together in the same room live. So it'll be kind of cool, and one of us will bring a $10 bill for the other one. So we'll see what happens.
And for all you guys that are around this part, if you would like to attend, just email me at kent@kentbush.com. And we will be more than happy to get you in and listed and come do Legal 1 and 2. Everybody has to have it. You can't update your license without it. So you might as well come hang out with us.
Exactly.
It is Legal 1 and 2, and we know Andrew is fun, but it is Legal 1 and 2. So
you can only make it so fun, but it's not a bad class. It really isn't.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. We'll have a great time. So everybody come on down. We'd love to have you. We'll get you the address and everything. Just go to kent@kentbush.com, send me an email, and I will get you hooked up.
Well, today is an interesting day. Kent and I were talking about what would be the next interesting addendums to go over, and we decided the best one to go over next would be the termination of the contract. Now, the problem with that is if we're going to actually do a good job explaining it, that means we're going to look at about 8 forms today, because I don't want to just say due to paragraph 6, due to paragraph 3, due to paragraph 9, whatever it is. We're going to actually go through and explain why it was. So there's going to be a lot of jumping around, but we're going to make sure you understand why each paragraph is marked the way it is and why you need to mark the correct one. And that is an important thing. Remember, the number one thing to remember when you're doing a termination of a contract is you are not an attorney. Do not pretend to be an attorney, and do not risk putting yourself in a situation where you're saying things like, this contract is no longer valid because this contract is terminated due to. You are not an attorney. We cannot give legal opinion, and that is in definition of TREC rules, giving legal opinion. You can say, due to the fact that we are out of contract according to the days according to the contract, it appears that we maybe have an issue, something to that effect. But if you start giving legal opinion about, hey, this contract's terminated due to, that's not your call. It's not your decision to make, and it's not your given authority to have. So be very careful when you're in that termination time or getting near the termination time about saying about. This is when a lot of real estate agents find themselves getting in trouble by quoting law. Though we may know the laws and understand them, we do not have the authority to interpret them to our clients. So be very careful about this in this process. You look like you want to say something.
Something that this is a prime example where you always need to talk to your manager or your broker, before you start making those kinds of decisions. Get them involved. They're going to help you. They're going to tell you the things they need to. I'm not saying that you don't know what to do, but if it gets sticky and you're not really sure, get an opinion on it before you do it. I mean, it's a simple thing to do. It keeps you out of trouble. It keeps your broker involved so they know if they get a phone call, how they need to handle it, right? Because there's nothing worse as a manager or a broker to get this phone call and people start just unloading on you about this situation and you have no idea what they're freaking talking about. And who we represent.
And we talked about this last week or yesterday with Andrew, where the great thing, if you're a member of the Texas Realtors, still have the trouble. After 100 years, they changed their name, so it's still
right. Yeah.
But Texas, if you're a member of Texas Realtors, and if you're a member of your local realtor party and you live in Texas, you're a member of Texas Realtors. The Texas Legal Hotline is a fantastic source of information. Yes. And it does 2 things. 1, you can talk to an attorney, and now you can talk to an attorney very quickly. Right. And 2, your broker will be immediately notified that you've talked to an attorney. So I guarantee if your broker's somewhat intelligent, they're going to call you and say, hey, I heard you were talking to an attorney. What's going on? Yeah. I know that's the first phone call I make when I receive that email. But just a great point. And guys, I don't want to scare anybody, but this is where sometimes we start interpreting law and saying this is in default because that's not our role. That's not what we do. Be careful. So the first form we're going to go over, and let me see, I'm going to switch to it now. Can you see my forms now, Kent?
Yes, I can.
All right. First, we're going to get this one done easy and out of the way.
Now I put my glasses on, I can really see.
The notice of the seller's termination of contract, it's a fairly new form that came into effect in 2018. And what's great about this form is there's only one real place in the contract the seller has a right to terminate. And that's when we're talking about paragraph 5. I loved when this was added to the contract. I thought it was a great opportunity because if the seller fails to deliver earnest money on time, the seller may terminate this contract. And that's a huge change that went into effect in April that I want to make sure we understand. So what it says, between the undersigned seller and whose name is blank, and buyer whose name is blank, seller notifies buyer the contract is terminated pursuant to the following. This is a notice of termination, not a, hey, I want to terminate, I'm interested in terminating. If you deliver this to the other party, this contract, from what I understand, again, I'm not an attorney, is null and void. Checking box 1, buyer failed to deliver earnest money within the time required under paragraph 5 of the contract and before the time seller provided this notice to buyer. Or 2, now to my understanding, there's not really any options for paragraph 2 yet. They just wanted to leave the door open for a later time. Note, this notice is not an election of remedies. Release of earnest money is governed by the contract. Track rules prohibit real estate license holders from giving legal advice. Read this form carefully. Again, they're making sure you understand this. Seller signs and dates, delivers to the other party. Now, I want to go to the contract real quick. Oh, look at me jumping right to it. Look at that.
Oh, look at that.
Paragraph 5 says very clearly, delivery of earnest money and option fee within 3 days after effective date. Buyer must deliver to blank as escrow agent. Now, you put a title company there. You do not put a person. You put whatever title company at blank, whatever the address is. Blank as money as earnest money and blank as option fee. Now, this is extremely important. Failure to deliver, if no dollar amount is stated in the option fee, or if buyer fails to deliver option fee within time required, buyer shall not have unrestricted right to terminate. Failure to timely deliver earnest money, if buyer fails to deliver earnest money within the time required, seller may terminate this contract or exercise seller's remedies under paragraph 15 or both by providing notice to buyer before buyer delivers the earnest money. Buyer fails to deliver option money within the time. Okay, I already did that one. So you have to have this done within a certain amount of time. Now, the important thing to understand here is if I have I'm not giving ideas on numbers, but using numbers to make life simple. If we do $1,000 earnest money and $100 option period, just for simple math, but I only deliver $1,000 to the title company, they are going to first credit the option period and then credit the earnest money. So in essence, I have delivered option money, but I have not fully delivered earnest money.
Correct.
At this time, if I do not have it delivered within 3 days after the effective date, then that means the seller should have the ability to use the termination of contract. So you need to make sure you understand that it is no longer pick and choosing which one's which. They will first credit the money to the option money, and then whatever's left will go towards the earnest money. So you will not have a full earnest money deposit according to how this works. Now, the way the 3 days work is, again, day of execution is day 0. It does not count. Let's use last week as a better example. So Thursday of last week, we execute this contract. I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday falls on a Sunday, so it does not count. Monday is a holiday, so it does not count. So I have until 5 o'clock on Tuesday to deliver earnest money and option period. If I have not done so at that time, seller has the right to terminate. I just want to make sure everybody understands that and how that one works, because it's an interesting form that a lot of people still haven't completely figured out. So just making sure people understand that.
And you got to remember too is that when they changed the contract, this used to all be written in paragraph 23, and so now we've changed the contract and we've changed the way we deliver. Before, if you delivered to the title company, the option period didn't exist because it wasn't delivered to the proper party.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It now says it will be delivered to the title company. So if you drop it off at my doorstep, it's not been delivered correctly.
Mm-mm.
So it's there's been a lot less hiccups than I was expecting. I wasn't a giant fan of getting rid of paragraph 23, but it's worked really well for us. I will say I've been happier than I thought I would be.
Yeah, me too. I was very nervous about that change because
I've seen a lot less hiccups than I thought I would.
Well, I thought we'd have to fight harder for option money, and return of earnest money because it was sitting at a title company.
The first couple of months, I did notice the title companies were forgetting to put option period on there, the option fee on there. They were forgetting it was in their accounts.
Right.
But that's why we have a duty to review the CD and make sure everything's correct.
Another point too is that as soon as that option money is delivered, the seller can request it.
Yes.
Right. They don't have to wait till closing. So if you're in there and they deliver that option money, as the seller, you can request that to be delivered to you on the spot.
Which is not a bad idea in case if you're worried about because if the deal goes sour, it's done. It's easy.
I don't want to fight with the title company over option money. I want it in my hand.
Exactly.
As a seller.
So just that's this one. It's kind of a straight shot one. The right for this, the notice of buyer's termination of contract. There's a lot of options here. There's 8 choices. One of them being very difficult, I would strongly recommend never using. Mm-hmm. Again, this is promulgated by the Texas Real Estate Commission, which means you cannot put you cannot put any information that you would put it here in anything else because this is a promulgated form. Again, street address and city between the underlined signed buyer and blank seller. Buyer notifies seller contract is terminated pursuant to the following. 1. Unrestricted of right to buyer to terminate the contract under paragraph 5 of the contract. We go back to the contract. I missed it that time. Paragraph 5, this is your option period. So instead of using paragraph 23, it's now paragraph 5. I have blank amount of days. Now remember, when you're adding up the number of days, it's very simple. Execution day is day 0, it does not count. The next day starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th day is your option period day ending. Be aware of that, understand that, and we're seeing a lot of issues with this. A lot of the times the reason your contract is being accepted is because the number of days that you're putting as an option period. Don't put 5 days and then on the 3rd day say I'm having trouble getting inspection, I need 6 more days. That is a frustration I'm seeing from a lot of people to have in that regard. Yeah. But that's the old paragraph 23, the new paragraph 5 of the most normal reason you'll see a termination of the contract.
And I'll give you a piece of advice here. If you think this through, and this is something that I've always done, is I always make sure that my option period never ends on a Sunday.
Yes, it's a very good idea.
Yeah, because people will put 5 days in there because it's what is normal. It's what we're thinking about. But then when 5 days is, nobody wants to negotiate a contract on Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Okay, the seller doesn't want to do it. The buyer doesn't want to do it. The agents don't want to do it, and we can't get a hold of anybody that can help us get through it. So make sure if you have to put 6 days in there, just pick the phone up and call the agent on the other side and go, hey, if we get this thing today, that'll be a Monday instead of a Sunday. Is that okay? And they'll always say yes.
Yeah, and that making sure you're paying attention. Now the problem is, as a buyer's agent, like you said, it's really difficult to know when the seller's going to execute it if there's going to be any changes. But very good point. Make sure you're not having that fight on a Sunday because it's really hard to make sure you can get a hold of everybody, especially if the Cowboys are playing.
That's right.
Paragraph 2, buyer cannot obtain buyer approval in accordance with third-party financing addendum to the contract. We go to the third-party financing addendum of the contract. If we can click the right thing. This is where this contract is subject to buyer obtaining approval within blank number of days. Again, if you put 12 days here and on the 15th day you try to use this to get out of it, that is not a good enough reason to get out of it. So you need to understand your timelines and make sure about what you can and can't do, because if you turn that in 40 days late and you only had 20, it's not a good enough excuse to terminate.
And there's an issue that I see up here all the time. I don't know if you see it down there, but somebody out there is teaching to put 21 days in there no matter what. You put 21 days, and I'm like, I don't understand that. Why would that be? If Andrew and I have been working together and I've had him in 3 to 5 contracts and we've got to underwriting and we know he's good, all we got to do is get it through there. It may only take 10 days to get him approved. So that's going to look good in that contract, right?
Absolutely.
But if he picked the phone up and was an internet lead yesterday, and he wants to go see a house, and I don't even know the name of his lender yet, I'm not going to put 21 days in there because it may take 40 days to get him approved. Right. So I need to know that, and I need to put something in there that protects it's my fiduciary responsibility as their agent to protect your earnest money. And so I have to know that situation before I make a decision on what number I put in that file.
Absolutely. And that's a huge point. And on the termination side, guys, just make sure you're within your time frame to be allowed to do it, because I've seen that fight happen a lot. I say, hey, we couldn't get financing. Not my problem.
Yeah. As a listing agent, I'm not extending for you.
Yeah.
That ain't my problem.
Paragraph 3, property does not satisfy property approval in accordance with third-party financing addendum to the contract. Buyers delivered seller's lender's written statement setting forth the reasons for lender's determination. This is a little bit different. Property approval, if property's lender, there's not really a timeline on this one as much. If buyer's lender determines that property does not satisfy lender's underwriting requirements for the loan, including but not limited to appraisal, insurability, and lender required repairs, buyer not later than 3 days before closing may terminate this contract by giving seller notice of termination and a copy of the written statement from the lender setting forth the reasons. So you can't just say, you can't just mark paragraph box 3 and be done with it. You have to deliver the lender's written statement setting forth the reasons why the lender is not going to allow this. So this, even if you have 12 days there, they have up until 3 days before the loan to do this. Now,
unfortunately, guys, that's not that. It didn't always say that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that guys who've been around for a long time will go, "Oh no, that's not what it says." That's because I haven't gone back and reread it since it's been rewritten. Exactly what it says.
And the problem is there may be some unscrupulous lenders out there that will create a letter even though there's nothing wrong with the property to get the buyer out of the deal. So just be aware. There's always a reason that people can try to get out. These are not ironclad agreements.
Right.
So go into it with that knowledge. Paragraph 4, buyer elects to terminate under paragraph A of the addendum of a property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association. Boom. A. Within blank days after the effective date of the contract, seller should obtain, pay for, deliver the subdivision information to the buyer. If seller delivers the subdivision information, buyer may terminate this contract within 3 days after buyer receives the subdivision information, or prior to closing, whichever occurs first, or 3 days after receiving it. So if you give me the information, I have 3 days to terminate for any reason, because there may be an issue with the homeowners association requirements that I do not agree with.
Right.
So you need to understand there's a 3-day timeline if you check box 1 or 2 in there to allow people the right to terminate this contract.
And don't think this comes into play way more than people think. And I don't know how it is in El Paso, but around here, we have restrictions where you can't park a boat in a driveway.
We have RV, and that becomes a huge issue.
You can't have a utility truck. So if you work for the power company and you have a utility truck, you can't park it in that subdivision. So you own the property, but you can't park the truck that you make a living out of to pay for because of the homeowner association.
Absolutely.
So I mean, guys, I've seen that thing come into play more than you can imagine. I mean,
absolutely,
deal after deal after deal. That's a big deal and something that you need to pay close attention to.
If you're selling a property that's subject to a mandatory membership in a property association, you've got to be aware that there's going to be some timelines and there's going to be some issues. It may be a bigger fee than they're expecting. It may be
right.
They have to put up Christmas lights. They can't put up Christmas lights. The ratios of grass to rock in the front yard.
One has got a $6,000 transfer fee.
Oh yeah.
I mean, crazy stuff like that, and you got to pay it. But, and the other side of it too, is that, most of them now are managed by some type of company that manages homeowners association, but you still got a bunch of them that are just managed by somebody that owns a home in that neighborhood.
Right. And the board spouse.
And so you got to make sure that number you put in there is enough days out to be able to find the information that you need.
Okay, buyer elects to terminate under paragraph 7B2 of the contract relating to seller's disclosure notice. This is a free 7-day option period if you do not, if I could figure out where my contract was, if you do not deliver, and this is huge, and this is an important thing, and I stress this when we talk contracts, but I talk about it again. If you mark paragraph 7B2, you are giving a free 7-day option to the buyer. The buyer and that's 7 days after they receive a copy of the seller's disclosure. So if the buyer does not receive the seller's disclosure prior to this contract being executed, and paragraph 7B2 is marked, within blank days after the effective date of this contract, seller shall deliver the notice to buyer. If buyer does not receive the notice, buyer may terminate this contract at any time prior to closing and earnest money refunded to buyer. If seller delivers the notice, buyer may terminate this contract for any reason within 7 days after receiving the notice, or prior to closing, whichever comes first.
So remember too, just because you put it in documents or you uploaded it, that's not delivering it. Putting it in MLS and documents is not delivered. You have to deliver it.
Right. What I will do is, if they have it marked on 7B2, I will cross that out, have my clients initial it, and resend the seller's disclosure with the counter offer. Even if that's the only thing we're changing, that's my counter offer, that they have received the notice.
Agreed.
It just makes your life a lot easier, guys. They have 7 days after receiving the disclosure, no matter what, to terminate it anytime for any reason. So understand that, huge importance.
And, and I think it's important, especially this document we're talking about, is that, the document was built for the buyer to get out.
Right.
It was not built for the seller to get out. If you really count it up, there's about 32 ways for a buyer to get out, and there's like 2 for a seller.
I think it's 1.
Yeah, maybe 1. Yeah, not very many. Yeah. So just be cautious and make sure you understand. You don't want to have people sign stuff you don't understand. That's probably the biggest point that I can make with this is that, if you don't understand what it says, have somebody help you, please. Keep yourself out of trouble.
Yes. Box 6, buyer elects to terminate under paragraph 3 of the addendum concerning right to terminate due to lender's appraisal. Buyer has delivered a copy of the appraisal to the seller. So, boom, we get to that. That's not it. Addendum concerning right to terminate due to box 3. Additional right to terminate. In addition to buyer's right to terminate under paragraph 2B of the third party, buyer may terminate the contract within blank days after the effective date if appraised value according to the appraisal obtained by the buyer's lender is less than blank and buyer delivers a copy of the appraisal to the seller. So again, we go back here. You can mark paragraph 6, but you also have to include a copy of the appraisal to the seller to prove that that is what the property appraised for.
And remember that document he just showed you is on a conventional loan.
Yes, because if you do not if it's a FHA or VA loan, it is already included in the third-party financing form.
Right. So here's what I see happening lately is that
right here,
sellers agents, are kind of turning their nose up to the fact that document is being used, which is a big problem. Right. That document was created because of escalation clauses that were being put in paragraph 11 of the contract over the last 4 or 5 years. That's why we created that document. And that document should be used on any conventional loan, period.
Absolutely. Well, because it gives you so many more options and protects everybody. Well, I'm sorry, guys. Nobody wants to pay more than something's worth.
Right. And it makes everything be a fact. The fact is, if I'm going to give you more money for the house over what it appraised for, it's a fact. It's already written out.
Right.
We'll have to go back and negotiate. And nobody wants to do that when the appraisal comes in. Nobody wants to have to renegotiate the house. Right. So let's have it in writing what we're going to do and how it's going to work. Because we already know you as a seller agent had told your seller, it's worth somewhere between 300 and 340. And they say, well, we want 340. Well, okay. We said it was worth somewhere between 300 and 340. We didn't say it was worth 340. Well, we want 340, and then we're going to get bids, up to 350, 360.
Right.
Well, it's not going to appraise. We didn't think it appraised for 340.
Exactly. No, and that's the problem that we're seeing in this market.
Yeah, and so we got to be careful. So that's why you got to make sure that you're using the forms that are necessary to keep your buyer and your seller out of trouble.
And I apologize. Paragraph 7 has to do with the condominium contract, and I did not pull a condominium contract. That is on me. Buyer elects to terminate under paragraph 60 of the contract, 6C for residential condominium contract because timely objections were not cured for the end of the cure. It's the same paragraph. I did not pull the condominium one, but we can go to the contract and look at it. If I can ever remember which one I am at. Okay. This is just the objections. If we're going to have injections, a buyer may object in writing to defects, exceptions, or encumbrances to the title, disclosed in the survey, and other than 6A through 6. So if there's any objections to the survey or the title, you would you have a certain amount of days to object to them. If they're not cured, then you can use paragraph 7 of the termination to get out of the contract for that reason. If they did not fix what was the objections were there.
Yeah. And I see in that's always a curious paragraph to be in the contract, because you'll see people normally will write in something like residential use.
Right.
And I mean, that's better than not putting anything. Yeah.
I would rather not put anything. I think if you write residential use, it's just a frustration to me.
Yeah.
Personally, because it should be a true thing.
Right.
What you should have there is, I want to be able to park my utility truck in the driveway.
Right. I
want to be able to do a daycare out of the house. Something that you're seriously wanting to do that you're worried that you won't be able to do. If you're buying a house and you're afraid of being able to live in it,
this thing as simple as having just they had like a home bake. They sold those candles or whatever and people they put stuff on their porch for people to come pick up, and they get turned into the homeowner association.
Wow,
yeah. I mean, it's just it's got to be in that for you to be able to get out and say, I'm going to do this. If there's any restriction, it needs to be in there already when you start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing else we're going over, guys, is the release of earnest money. Release of earnest money between the undersigned buyer and seller concerning the property at blank. This form provides release of the parties, brokers, title companies from all liability under this contract, not just for disbursement of earnest money. Do not sign this form if you are not, intention is not to release all persons signing this form from all liability under this contract. Questions, consult your attorney. Remember, earnest money in this situation acts as liquidated damages. If you accept earnest money, according to the contract, you cannot sue because you've been given liquidated damages. The undersigned buyer and seller release each other, any broker, title company, escrow agent from any and all liability under the aforementioned contract. The undersigned direct, again, we put the title company there, not a person, to disperse the earnest money as follows. Blank to blank, so much money to one person, so much money to another person. Buyer signs, buyer's broker signs. Seller signs, seller's broker signs. All parties have to sign this. And I'm going to tell you guys, the title company is 99.9% sure not going to release any earnest money without this form signed by all parties.
Yeah, it's a war.
Yeah,
to get the title company to do it.
And the problem is that becomes a fight a lot of times,
right,
where they're fighting over the earnest money. Both of them feel they deserve it,
and the title company will come back and rightfully so will say, we don't interpret the contract. It's not our job to interpret, because as a manager and a broker, of course, I'm going to fight for our client and I'm going to go try to get their earnest money.
Right.
Of course, I'm always going to refer to why it should be released based upon what it says in the contract. And the title company will rightfully say what we should be saying. I'm not an attorney. I don't interpret the contract. If you guys decide to release it however you want to release it, send me the form. I'll be more than happy to do it. Right. Yeah. But they're not going to interpret the contract for us. And I mean, and trust me, I've tried to get them to do it a million times. And every once in a while I'll talk them into it, but not very often. Right?
Absolutely. And for a reason, guys. I mean, they're not going to just magically be like, oh, yeah.
Well, they have a fiduciary responsibility just like you do. They've taken that money, they put it into an escrow account, which I don't think a lot of agents understand what an escrow account is. The escrow account is managed by the state of Texas, right? So that account goes in there and it's accountable to the state. So, the escrow account that the title company uses, they don't pay salaries out of, they don't do anything. That account is specifically to hold funds that are to deal with contracts that they're working, period. Nothing else goes in there. And they don't get interest on it. I mean, none of that kind of stuff, right, guys? It's just a very specific account that they can be incredibly accountable for every penny of it and where it goes.
Absolutely.
And the other thing too is that I don't think people realize too is that we can actually negotiate in this contract who gets what from the earnest money. I can come back and say as the seller that, yeah, I see that happened. I want half the earnest money. And we can do that, right? Because we can say how many dollars go to who, right? The other thing you got to remember about this too is that if the title company's done any type of work, appraisal, whatever, that money comes out of the earnest money right there. I mean, it is owed to the title company, so you're not getting that back. I know I jumped on your bandwagon. Sorry, Andrew.
No, hey, and that's the point. That's the goal. That's why we do these classes. But you're absolutely right. Yeah. Just know that until this is signed by all parties, the title company is not going to release it, and they're not the bad guy for that.
And they're not going to release it without the broker's signature. To make that real clear, even if it's signed by both parties, in this case, the broker have to say it's okay because there's a contractual agreement between the seller and the broker and the buyer and the broker that has compensation in it. And because of that, the broker has to say, I'm okay with this going away and not being compensated for what the work that we've done.
But, and that's it. And exactly. So that is these forms in a nutshell. I want to make sure you guys have an understanding of them. We went fairly, not too long. No, we're good. Right about the 30-minute mark that we usually are. So, but I hope that was good information for you guys to learn, to understand, and to use on that. Can't talk to us about something besides the Cowboys.
Okay, I promise I will. Okay, so today we're going to spend a little time talking about the world's most difficult person to work with, and that is yourself. Okay, and so what do I mean by that? So actually, I was having a conversation with my friend Claudia this morning, about how does a real estate agent really know what to do every day and how to do it? Most real estate agents wake up every morning with no idea what they're going to do during the day. They let their email dictate it to them. They're going to go check their email. They're going to start chasing rabbit holes down, and run this way or that way. They don't determine what they should do on a very regular basis. So one of the ways you become a successful real estate agent is to make sure that you understand how to manage your day. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. You got to manage your time. You got to know when you're going to do what you're going to do and why you're doing it. Okay. You got to manage your energy. One of the things I see with real estate agents a lot is they'll come in, it cracks me up. They'll come blowing in from the parking lot with bags hanging around and dragging stuff behind them, and they get there at 9:30 because they got an appointment at 9:45 that's 25 minutes away and they haven't done the sheet for them yet, and so they try to get that all done in 30 seconds. And, their energy level is just being drained every second, so they don't manage that time well enough where they know they need to come in an hour early and get that done. Then the other thing they do is they run all day. They don't stop for lunch. They'll just run and go and not take, every once in a while, guys, the human mind needs a 5-minute break. We can't go 10, 12, 15 hours a day without taking a break. It just doesn't work. Right. So you gotta manage that stuff. You got to put those things in there. Right. And then
I see agents posting on Facebook all the time. Didn't have time for breakfast. Didn't have time for lunch. Run. Like,
yeah. I made time to pull through Wendy's today and get me a coffee and some breakfast. It took 5 minutes, right? Well, because I was plenty early for what I needed to do. So just make sure here's the other thing is that, we get to set our times. So if you can't set your time where you can make it, readjust it, guys. Move the time back. If you can't be there at 9, that's the cool thing about being a real estate agent. Get there at 9:15, but make sure that's when you start your day every day. Set the time. Don't do noon. Noon doesn't work. Let's make that clear, right? But you get to adjust those times. So do that, right? Then the other thing that we do is we really, and this is probably the biggest thing that we'll ever talk about on here, is we got to learn how to manage our money. Right? So most of our people come out of other industries where somebody wrote them a check, right? And when they wrote them a check, in that check, they took the taxes out, right? Right? Now you get into real estate and you get this big old nice whopping check that comes in, and you're like, man, I just made 10 grand. No, you didn't. You made 7 grand. Put the other 3 grand in your tax account because Uncle Sam's going to ask for it at the end of the year. Right? So be sure that you're being smart and you're doing smart things with your money. Do not spend the whole thing. Okay, period. If you're really smart about it, what you'll do as you get good and you get consistently putting closings together, you'll start paying yourself a salary. So every month you get X amount of dollars, then the rest of it stays in your business to manage and work your business. Now, hopefully, after taxes are done at the end of the year, you can write yourself a big bonus check. That'd be great, but be sure you do smart things with your money and try to get yourself where you're putting yourself on a salary. Okay. The other thing that you got to do when we start talking about time, and time is everything. And I know y'all think I beat this horse to death, but I'm going to beat it a little bit more. It's the number one thing we do every day is figure out how to generate a lead. Okay. If that's not the number one thing on your schedule every day, you're not going to be successful in real estate. It's just not going to happen, because without a lead, you can't have a transaction. Okay. Okay, so the lead gets you to the transaction. The transaction gets you to a paycheck. That's as simple as this, right? So make sure that when you're planning your day, that the number one thing you put on your time block is, when am I going to spend time to generate lead? And you cannot go show a house instead of doing it. You can't, go pick up the kids from school, You can't let those little things get in the way. They can get in the way of everything else except generating a lead. Generating a lead is the number one thing that you got to do. So make sure that you set that and you start each day with that on your calendar and in place, right? So I know Brian does this. I do this. Is that at a certain time in the morning, I pretty much have my days laid out for the entire month. But every morning I go in and I look at it and I take 30 minutes just to evaluate my day, to make sure that I've got all the things that I need to do. Because that's one of the other interesting things about real estate, is it tends to change on a daily basis based upon generating a lead and what comes up with that transaction, right? So I may have to move things, right? So I do that every morning. That's the first thing I do before I look at an email, before I do anything, is I just look at my day and make sure that I've got it laid out properly and that I'm managing it properly. So be sure you're thinking about that on a regular basis, right? And then each and every day has to have an ending point. Okay. That's another thing that you guys are horrible about, is that you'll go and you'll go and you'll go. I mean, I get emails from real estate agents at 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night. It's like, guys, come on. At some point in time, you gotta stop, right? And then and the ones I get from people at 12 and 1 o'clock at night are the ones that are running in the next morning at 9:30 late for their 9:15 appointment, because they didn't have a stopping time. So be sure you create a time to stop every day. Okay, it's great. And I'm going to tell you, and this is just advice from somebody that's watched this and dealt with hundreds of agents over years, is that if you don't figure that out, you are going to have issues with your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I use Nick as a perfect example. When my brother first started in property management, he worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I mean, he worked hard, and we went from 67 or 73 rentals to we have close to 700 now. So I mean, there is a great opportunity, but he burned out and burn out hard. And then you have kids and life gets in the way. And you work to live. You don't live to work. You got to find what those reasons are. You got to have those small enjoyments, and there's got to be the reasons to do things. What do you want to do to make it better? And if it's just work all day long, you're eventually going to get tired of it.
Yeah, and your family's going to get tired of it.
And
that's even worse.
Well, and what's it for? I mean, you could work. I've seen people work drop everything for a client, do everything for months, and then the client buys a house with somebody else.
Yeah.
Because, we were just driving by an open house and we saw a deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the builder said I didn't need you.
Yeah. How many games did you not watch with your kids? How many dinners did you miss?
Right.
For people who didn't care. You can say all you want, and Nick and I were talking about this, unfortunately, earlier today, is, we've had a lot of staff come and go over the last 16 years we've had this company.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always another one. I'm not saying anything against our staff. Our staff is amazing. They do amazing things.
Right.
But if you think any company anywhere is not going to replace you when you go, it's not true. When I worked for the title company, I worked 14 hours a day. I would be at work before the sun came up. I would leave work after the sun had set. I did not take a lunch, and I worked, and that company would not have run without me. And you know what? I left, and I was still there when I left.
Exactly.
And it's a sad truth that it's a hard thing for a lot of people to realize. Now, did it run as smoothly for a while? Probably not. Would they have preferred to keep me on? Hopefully. But at the end of the day, okay, we'll find somebody else to do the job. And you got to have that understanding for yourself, because unfortunately you are all your own boss. You can blame brokers and managers and all you want, but at the end of the day, you're your own company, and you've got to make sure you set time for the reasons you get up. Everyone's got to have a reason to get up and go to work.
Wow. And
your reason can't be when I retire, because too often I've seen people retire and a month later we're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And and that's an interesting point. Something I talk about a lot is that, retirement's not really a function of time. It's a function of money. Yeah. So the things we do and the good habits that we develop over this time, listing and selling real estate, which is a very lucrative thing to do, can create the money so you don't have to worry about the time piece of it when that comes together. If you do
absolutely, and I don't take a lot of vacation time, but a lot of my work acts as vacation-ish. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those weird people that enjoy meetings. I really do. But, in November, I'm going to Hawaii on a work trip. And I'm going 4 days early with my wife, or I'm staying 4 days late, and my wife's coming and going to join me for 4 days. I take advantage of the company paying for me for the fly there. I fly with my wife and get a hotel room for 4 extra days, and that's our vacation.
Yeah.
I'm on multiple boards. I'm on the state boards, local boards, and they send me all over the place. I'm also on the foundation board for my fraternity. And twice a year, we go and do meetings somewhere fun. I was in Lexington last year. I've done, we've been to Florida. We've been to all over where we have very strenuous meetings, but when it's over, I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm having a good time and I'm creating these memories. So for me, my downtime is going to meetings, which is weird. For even my daughter can't figure out. She's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, I have about a 14-hour meeting, and that's fun. For me, it is. I'm kind of weird. But that's my downtime away from the office.
Right.
Sad truth, it's my time away from my kids and my wife, where I'm able to just revamp and get ready and come back and be excited to see everybody again.
It's like, and I was actually having this same conversation this morning. It's one of those things you got to remember is like, whether you're religious, not religious, that's not the point. The point is, I can read the Bible and learn everything I need to know. But there's a reason we gather at churches on Sundays, because you need to be around like-minded people, because those like-minded people will revitalize your belief in whatever it is, whether it's going to a convention or, it's going to church, or it's going to whatever that you enjoy being a part of. You need to be around like-minded people. and it drives energy into you, which is, the other thing that I want everybody to realize is when you're scheduling your day, and this is kind of back to where we were, is that, pretty much until noon, your schedule's non-negotiable. Those things from the time you start in the morning, which, hopefully is way before noon. Yeah. Not way before, but a little, right? Yeah. Is that that's the time you spend generating leads, doing the things that you have to do to build your business. And the afternoons as real estate agents, we get it, man. Somebody calls in and says, Kent, I need to see 123 Main Street and I need to see it now. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not going to do that in the morning until I have generated my leads for the day. So make sure that you stay focused on that piece of it. And we've talked a bunch about it already, but creating that mental capacity that you're ready to go to work every day. The other thing too is physically. One of the things that we all need to do is take care of ourselves, and that becomes another issue that real estate agents have. Is we go 1,000 miles an hour and we live on caffeine. We live on. we don't do the things we're supposed to be doing. We don't get up and walk. We don't exercise. We don't do those things. You gotta schedule that into your life. That those are things that you got to do. You have to take good care of yourself, and make a specific time, to do that. Right. And I'm not saying do it. You don't have to be some crazy workout like Nick. I mean, we're not all going to put on a 50-pound pack and run up a mountain. Give me a break.
I think his little brother.
I pushed my grandbaby to the park yesterday and we slid on the slide. That was kind of cool, right? That's my exercise, right? So but do something, right? That's what you got to do, and just make sure that you're utilizing that day and you're planning it every single day when you get up. I could spend hours and hours and hours just talking about how to do this on the regular, and we may do a whole class on it sometime, which we probably should. But and then the last thing that we're going to touch on is just make sure that you're taking care of your money, guys. As real estate agents, you got to do that. I mean, it's so easy to get that check and go, oh my gosh, man, let's go buy a new car. Well, if you're going to buy stuff, I'm a firm believer. I don't spend any. And this is really going to get too deep for most of y'all. I won't spend $200 unless I sleep on it. So if I see something that's more than $200, I ain't buying it unless I sleep on it. Next day I'll buy it if I want it. But
don't tell my wife your plan, because I'm a spender. I will spend money.
Yeah. And I used to, and when I finally started, and that's just a rule for me. I mean, anybody, you can, figure that out yourself. But, I was the same way. I'd go and I just buy it. You want, yeah, let's just get that. But, I've got about $20,000 worth of freaking outdoor cooking equipment in my garage that, I used like once last year. Yeah. So you got to think about that, but you also got to make sure that you're taking that money. And if you don't do anything, if you don't hear anything else I talk about today, is that be sure that you're putting a percentage of that money back to pay those taxes, guys.
That's huge.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, there's nothing in this world worse than the IRS coming down on you because you didn't pay. And the problem with it, they'll play in the games. They just come.
And the other is the wife, when she realizes that you have to pay those taxes. My wife gets so mad at me. She'll be she's like, "What? You know what taxes we're gonna have to pay?" It's like, you're the only woman I know mad that I made money.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It always cracks me up when somebody goes, "You can't believe how much taxes I had to pay." Well, how much money did you make? Yeah.
No, you're true. If you're not putting money away, if you don't have one or two savings accounts that you forget about till January, April, I will pay out the last possible day. But
I mean, every time any money comes to my account, I don't care where it comes from. I throw 30% of it into my savings, which is my tax savings. I don't make it. Of course, the bank didn't pay anything on it, so it's just I'm not really making anything, but it's sitting there, right? So then I'll take all my expenses to my and if you're not using the CPA, and guys, pay the people that do the work. Let me tell you, just pay the people that do the work. You are not an expert at tax law. Go find somebody that is an expert and pay them to take care of you, because it will make you money in the long run. I will give Andrew $500 today to save me 5,000 every day of the year. Okay. I mean, be smart. Don't try to, tax time is not where you're trying to save a penny. Tax time is where you go find somebody that can save you thousands. Okay. When you make that mistake and pay it in, it's gone. You're not getting it back. Okay. They're not going to send it. They're not going to call you and go, "Oh, Andrew, you made a mistake on your taxes. We owe you." Yeah. Ain't going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah. So just be smart with your money, guys. And make sure you have that account. And again, there's a book out there that I think all of you should go pick up. It's a little short book. It doesn't take very long. You can get it on Amazon, and it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. Right. And so the moral of the story behind The Richest Man in Babylon is simply this: is that at some point in time, you have to pay yourself, right? And you have to be smart with your money. So what he tells us in this story is that we should take 10% of everything we earn and pay ourselves and put that into, quote unquote, our own retirement fund, right? You're a real estate agent. There's nobody matching a 401k for you. That stuff is not happening. So you have to be disciplined to do it. If you don't do it, nobody's going to do it, right? So tax money and pay yourself, okay? And then then the other thing is feed your business, guys. I mean, that's the other thing that cracks me up about real estate agents is they're like, well, I'm not doing that. That costs money. Well, guess what? It costs money to be in business. Right? Andrew can tell you this. He's got, how many office spaces do you have that you pay on, the staff that you pay on, and utilities and copiers and paper, and just
toilet paper and paper towels alone.
Well, we want free coffee. Well, guess what? It's not free. Somebody pays for it, right? It's just the way it works. So feed your business. You have to take some of that income that you earn and understand that that's part of how you grow your business, right? It's just, when I used to be in the beer and wine business, had 5 beer and wine stores that I ran or owned and operated, right? And every day, 365 days a year, Christmas, the 4th of July when it's pouring down rain and nobody comes and buys beer because they can't go to the lake, every day it cost me $27,900 to get to zero. So I woke up every morning knowing I had to make $27,900 before I made 1 penny. Right? Now, is that scary? It is when you say it. When you know you got your system in place and it's operating, it's not that big a deal, right? But in fact, the ring I'm wearing today is like the one that I got. I bought all my guys. You see, it says kegs and corks on it, right? And when we did our first $1 million month in our first store, that's what everybody got, because it was, it's cool, right? So we set a goal and we did something, right? But we knew every day it was going to cost us $27,900 to get to zero, right? So when somebody says you need to go buy a roll of stamps and send out 100 mailers, and you go, "Oh, I don't know if I can spend $55. Well, I promise you, I'm not the guy you want to call and talk to about that, because it's just not going to fly with me. Because the bottom line is we have to do that to be successful. So the moral today is, if you can learn to manage the most difficult person, which is yourself, right, you're going to do extremely well at this. If you can't figure out how to manage that person, being yourself, you're going to have a difficult time being a real estate agent. So, take the time, think about it. Don't just listen to this stuff. Guys, pay attention to it. Make note and thought, and make sure that you wake up with intention every day to do the things that we talk about. Andrew and I, we're already doing this. And we do this because we care about you guys and we want you guys to be successful. So, please just, take at least 1 or 2 things you've heard from us today and utilize them and make your life better. Because at the end of this whole day, when this is all done, you'll be happy you did. So
Absolutely.
that's me for today, buddy.
All right, and next week, as I said, it'll be a different setup. We'll both be in the same room, so it'll be kind of cool.
How fun is that? Yeah, so one more plug for that. So we will be here in Midlothian, which is in the southern part of the DFW area. So anybody that's around or interested in coming, you can email me at kent@kentbush.com, and I would be more than happy to get you instructions and times to be here. We'll start on the 15th at 1 p.m. and go till about 4. We will do a little happy hour afterwards. So bring your Uber card if you need to. And then we will be starting again on Legal 2 with Legal 1's the first day, Legal 2 the next morning at 9 o'clock. And so we'll do Legal 2 at 9 o'clock. We do have some vendors coming. We have one vendor that's bringing a coffee truck for us that morning. How cool is that, right? Yeah. So, you got to love your vendors, right? So we'd love to have you guys. Again, just email me. I'll get you all the information, kent@kentbush.com. All right, great.
Thank you, guys.
All right.